anything comes up that you want to discuss that you want me to pause the recording, I'm quite happy to do that as well. In fact, there was something came up at the last meet where I basically didn't post the recording at all because I was asked not to. So that does happen, but that's the first time that's happened. But it can, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
So tell us where you're up to on this journey, Scott. What are you?
Let's see. God, I don't want to go into a long story. All right, I will real quickly. Years ago, my therapist, when I say years ago, like probably 20, 25 years ago, my therapist said, "You have a spiritual issue," and told me about Eckhart Tolle. So I,
Yep.
read his books, kind of got a conceptual idea, and start doing some mini meditations and stuff, and it helps. And having that concept kind of helped me through my life, but it went flat. I wasn't doing any practices. I didn't know what practices to do, and then I found myself retired years and years later, and all kinds of like thoughts and stuff coming up and panic. What am I going to do? So I said I need to do something about this. So I went to psychology and I did some psychology books. It was like hitting whack-a-mole, and then for some reason I just kept getting pointed back to spirituality. So I tried the Sedona method for a while, and I learned a lot from it. Found that it was just not. I don't know. I just didn't think there's something about it that. Anyway, I went forward and started looking at Angelo DeLillo's channel on
Yep.
YouTube,
Yep. Yep.
and I was working with his stuff, and I thought that was super, just really, really. I hate to say enlightening, but very.
Yep.
He's super
It
clear.
it resonated with you.
Yes, yeah, that's a good word. Resonated. So then I was like, I don't know how I kept seeing his Feder YouTube videos. Weren't sure where they were, and I was like, that's far beyond me right now. But then I was having reactivity, and I did a search for reactivity, and Feder's 4 and 5 came up. I started looking into them and a certain website, and somehow I ended up with at the Awakening curriculum. So I think their Discord group and everything. I'm just feeling like this is home. So when
Right.
they
Good
pointed
one.
me to
Yeah.
you, I wrote you and got the link. So I
Right.
don't
Yeah.
feel like I understand no self, but I I still feel like a person.
Yeah. Yeah. But you never found a self. Did you go looking?
Oh yeah, I've looked for her. That little guy is nowhere to be found. Can't find him.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
I don't know why. It seems like he's still there, but I cannot find him.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. That one, that idea that he's still there. Yeah, and it's based on that sense of self, isn't it? That comes up from time to time when things happen. Yeah. So if do you find yourself um, being defensive about, like, if somebody were to insult you or somebody were to cut you off in traffic, would you find yourself being defensive?
Yeah, those urges are still there. Yeah, to protect myself.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
reduced.
Yeah.
Reduced,
Yeah.
and
Yep. Yeah. Good. Yeah.
I can pull myself out. I can say like Angela's question. Who is it who's aware of this thought or sensation or whatever it is that's in your on my attention, and I can pull myself out and kind of to the I am sense. I'm pretty sure it's the I am sense, but it'll like if I don't
Yeah.
just stay with it and anchor myself, I'll go lost in thought again. And
Yeah.
a couple.
Okay. Yeah. Right. So there's some cleaning up to do. Yeah. Yeah. So I wouldn't imagine that you're still enmeshed in the illusion that there's a self running the show. right. You're just getting, yeah, they're just,
Cognitively, yes, you're right. I
yeah.
don't.
Mm.
I totally see that there isn't one. It's, I totally see it. Like it's just just a bunch of like conglomeration of thoughts that are up there that bounce off each other and mean nothing, but
Yeah, yeah.
I identify with them still sometimes.
So can you see that all these thoughts about Scott that you've been kind of collecting all your life, and the response to them is what gives rise to the illusion that there is a self there?
Yes.
Mm. Sure, I understand. Yeah. So you got some second fetish stuff going there, some doubts that come up because you you put a story on some of the responses that happen. You say, therefore, that means that there's still a self there. Is that accurate?
Say that again now.
So
Let me
there
feel
are
this.
some doubts that turn up from time to time about whether you've broken feta one, whether you've seen through the illusion of a self. And those doubts are there because of another story that attaches itself to feelings and sensations that those stories say that means that something is still there.
Yes, I guess you're right. Yes, I, I have like major doubts, like low self esteem, and like doubt is like one of the biggest things in my life. So, but what you said was like I totally understand what you're saying. Like, I don't know if I can repeat it, but uh, right, I determined that I'm not awake because I see that there's other people. It looks like there's other people. It looks like there's distance. It looks like, you know, it looks like I need to protect myself.
Mm,
I
mm.
react. So I determine that no, I'm not awake.
Yeah. Okay. So somewhere you've got a story that about what it's like to be awake.
Right. Right. I I think so when I in the beginning, one, I thought that as soon as you had an identity shift, it was over. It was all bliss. So then Angela's channel, like I realized after going through his channel, like realizing, well, this is just the beginning. Like if there is a when that happens, that's just the beginning. But
Mm,
he also has like he says you can't know, you just can't know what it is because it's non-conceptual. You can't imagine it, but yet he says it's available to you. So that like kind of like that encouragement almost locks in that feeling of, oh, it's available. I gotta get it.
yeah,
I
yeah,
don't know
yeah,
how to.
yeah.
I don't know how to
Yeah.
describe it another way.
Right. So you've got this beautiful fantasy about the future,
Yeah.
uh, and it includes that that you will deserve it if you earn it.
I'm not sure that I'll ever like. I should. Let me rephrase that. Like, there's a strong thing. I probably have. I feel like down in there, there's like I don't deserve it. There's a pretty good belief that I don't deserve it.
Mm, mm. Not because of any behavior, but because of something intrinsic in you.
Intrinsic.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
No
yeah. You're
value.
s-
Like
you're s- you're s- you're still a naughty little boy.
exactly, for sure.
And until you're a good boy, you'll never get there.
that's, that's what got to push so hard.
Yeah. So what if I tell you you haven't accrued enough points to get a certificate yet?
Bad feeling.
Yeah. What if I tell you you're never going to get a certificate, and the idea of chasing points is pretty crazy. It's not gonna ever get you anywhere except staying where you are.
Confusion.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. Confusion's great. I love confusion. It means you're open to things, yeah. But yeah, okay. Yeah, this idea of what awakening is, is really interesting. But I see so many like you with ideas of what it's going to be like that, of course, I just bullshit. It just never happens like that. So what if I tell you that you can be awake, whatever that is, whatever it is, I don't know what it is, but that you can be awake and you're still going to get triggered, that you'll still have a sense of self turn up from time to time, even when you're awake. So, so what do you think awake is? Do you think awake is never having a sense of self, always being blissed out?
Well, I definitely felt that way before. Now, I guess I kind of feel like, um, I guess I've kind of waited. I've been waiting for a sudden shift where
Yeah, yeah,
I all of a sudden my because I've heard about the identity shift, so I'm imagining I'm gonna notice a something, and I've seen like videos of people who just snap into the identity shift and appear to be elated. You know what I mean? And
for sure.
and
Yeah, yeah. I've
description
seen people
of how
do
they
that.
feel.
Yeah, yeah.
And I guess that's what I have in my mind. You know.
Right. Yeah. Well, let me tell you something. Here's a bit of a reality check for you. I've been guiding for a long time, lots and lots of people, and I've seen a fair few people have that snap that you talk about, that epiphany, and they go into what is called the honeymoon period, or what's vernacular is it's the honeymoon period where they do get quite blissed out and they get around going, wow, 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 this is fucking beautiful, isn't it? And and a week later, a month later, and I've seen a couple of them a year later, they come crashing back down. They do. They come crashing back down because that's not it. That's just a state that they're in for a while. Now, it's not to say that it's not related. It is related, but there's a lifetime of habit that's sitting there in the background, a habit of seeing things in a particular way and so on. What we're talking about, what actually happens, is a little bit like when you take magic mushrooms. Have you ever had a psilocybin trip or MDMA or one of
No,
those things? Yeah.
I when I was a kid, I took LSD a couple
Okay,
times.
that's kind of close enough. In they all have their own variations, but one of the things that they do is that affects the part of the brain where there is a sense of self. This thing happens, And it's like what we're doing is we're doing it the hard way. We're doing it without the psychedelics to help us. So what we're doing is we're shifting activity from one side of the brain to the other. We're moving from the left brain to the right brain. Right? There's a great book out there by a lady called Jill Taylor Bolte. She,
No.
um, you know her, yeah, yeah. She describes what had happened, and happened that happened as an injury for her. I think an aneurysm caused that for her, but nevertheless, she operated from a right brain for quite some time. And this is what we're learning to do, but we never leave the left brain behind. Doing it this way, it's still available, but it gets a lot calmer and a lot quieter, and it's a lot less critical, and it's a lot less active in terms of its analysis of things and so on. So yeah, this is what we're doing. We're actually establishing neural pathways in the right brain and allowing the ones in the left brain that we've been brought up to to use a lot, and they're very active and very strong. Our whole society, promotes this left brain activity. It's good to be smart. It's not so good if you're not intellectual. That's the way we've been brought up. So that kind of happens. So yeah. So okay. Let me summarize a little bit. There's no finish point. Not that I know of. There's no finish point. I'll be doing this for the rest of my life, I imagine. Um, there's no point where you can say I've crossed the line, but there are things that we leave behind, kind of. It gets to the point where words are not really adequate to describe a lot of this stuff. But yeah. So you're definitely on the path. You've got a couple of feet on the path, and in my opinion, and I don't ever want you to believe what I say. You got to check it out for yourself. It's easy to say that, not so easy to do, maybe. But yeah. Um, but yeah. Anyway, I'm talking too much. John Lee's pretty awake. Tell him what you reckon, John. What do you think about what we've said so far? This just give me a rest from talking. I talk too much sometimes.
Um, I think I had the idealization about what it looked like as well. I couldn't say I'm awake now. But yes, it's a process.
Let me just interject there. Nobody who's awake will say they're awake.
But there's a lot of like grasping and longing, and that's painful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like the last vestige of like, this isn't it kind of thing. Yeah, it's just like it's a road to here kind of thing, and it's a painful road, but it's the only road you're on.
Why do we want to do it? I know we can't.
One of the hallmarks of I'll put it in quotes and say, it's not literal, but one of the hallmarks of getting there, or getting a little bit close to there, is you start to realize that questions are pretty ridiculous, because there's no actual answer, especially when you start questioning this kind of stuff. So it's good to have questions. It's not good to have it's not good to seek for the answer. If we have a question, then we go, okay, let's wait and see what happens, and there'll never be any definitive answer. Yeah. Sorry, John, I jumped in there again.
I think why we do it is it's more like, it's more to rephrase. You should rephrase that question as like, what are you running away from that's here, and that's painful.
Myself. Maybe.
What's painful about yourself?
doubt, feeling of lack of value, emotional pain. I used to think it was just emotional pain, but I'm not sure.
I think it's a bit of both, because there's emotional pain and there's doubt. Doubt's in the mind. Both are painful. What emotion?
Feeling less than, inadequate, valueless.
Mm-hmm.
Stuck, disingenuous. I can see myself doing things that, when I look, that I think, wait a minute, that's motivated by self interest, things that I think are altruistic, and I look and I'm like, no, I did that because I didn't want to feel a certain way.
So if you were to pick one of those words, which one would that be to just describe the emotion now?
My emotion right this minute.
Correct.
Right now, I'm kind of disoriented, actually.
Okay. Rather than looking at your mind, would you drop down into your body and feel that? What is that saying?
It's confused. The part where I feel my doubt all the time is I can feel that stimulated, but it's different, a little different. Like there's a confusion and like uh, it's harder to describe because I do some of this and it's a different feeling. It's like a little bit of lack of feel like my breath is really shallow, and then I have that feeling where the doubt is, but it just is a little bit bigger, and it's kind of moving and confused.
Mm-hmm. What's wrong with confusion?
My brain says it's uncomfortable.
So the whole time you were talking there, Scott, about what you were feeling, you were looking up. And that tells me that you were thinking. It was what you were describing was coming from your thoughts. You were not in touch with what you were feeling. And now you're looking up again, see?
I'm doing it again. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm very, like, very mind oriented, and I'm trying to do, I've been using the focusing technique to try to get myself more in touch with it. But I still notice, I notice that I do that myself. I just, yeah, my attention is here, but I guess it's because when I'm confused, I look to my mind to try to find an answer.
Yeah, yeah.
I felt like the running theme of when you're describing all your emotions wasn't confusion, or maybe it's because you said so many. I felt like the running theme was being inferior.
Yes,
Would you agree?
I would agree.
Are you feeling that now?
Yeah.
Could you go into it?
Yes.
Could you describe it to us?
Like the doubt area feels like a dense area, kind of like a rock, but not hard. Maybe
Put your hand on that part. Whereabouts in the body is that?
right under my right under my solar plexus.
Yep. Okay. Good. Yep. Cool.
Right above my stomach, right below my sternum. It's always in the same spot, and it's almost always. I can almost always feel it. And then right now, as I'm trying to, I keep saying trying all the time. As I go into it, it feels like it spreads down into my lower abdomen. And in the past, when I've done focusing, I found that my lower abdomen is kind of like a blank spot. I call it the safe, like because I couldn't see anything or feel anything down there, and it's kind of spreading down towards that area, kind of like I don't know, heat or rain, or I don't just energy moving down towards that area that I call the safe. I have to close my eyes to do it. That way I don't look up. It works better that way, it seems like.
Mm-hmm. And it's a, you say it's a tight knot, and it
So
spreads.
the doubt is like a heavy mass with soft. It's got soft exterior. It's not like a rock, but it's like if you took a rock and turned it into liquid. It's heavy. It weighs me down. And then
Mm-hmm.
as I was, going into the feeling of lack, it seemed like it was kind of not melting, but energy was coming down from it and spreading out and going down towards the lower part of my abdomen. I feel like it seems to me, it feels like there's dark secrets in there, down there.
Mm. If it went far enough, would you shit them out or vomit them out?
I imagined one time that I would shit him out, but right now my stomach's a little upset, so I don't know. Right now I feel like I could puke him out. But
Mm. Mm. Yeah. I really like organ language. Organ language kind of reveals a lot, I think. And when we get that thing like they're down in the stomach, there, it's like it's something you can't stomach.
mm.
And that's usually disgust. I'm not saying it is the case for you, just something to consider.
It feels like it could be because I kind of feel like that's how I feel about myself or
Yeah, yeah.
whatever that thing is that I feel myself is.
Mm.
Have
Yeah,
you
well, I
tried?
mean, yeah, go on, John.
Have you tried? Because I've heard three emotions now. I've heard the doubt, the inferiority, and then I've heard disgust. Um, have you tried removing all those labels and just seeing what it wants to do? What the sensation? How does the sensation want to move itself? Have you ever tried that?
I have not. The
I think
focusing that I've been. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I think that's worth a try.
Just remove all the labels. Don't.
Yeah, because the labels has got a negative connotation. It's more like, I don't want this to be here. I don't want to be doubtful. Who wants to feel inferior? But if we
Just
take
focus.
yeah, just go right to the sensation itself.
So like how do I put this? Until very recently, I've never gone into my bodily sensations. Like, I mean, I was aware of my body physically, my joints, as far as, physical exercise and stuff like that, but I never went into my feeling, my emotion body. So I came across a book. Somebody pointed me to the focusing book. And so I've been doing that. But that entails looking for labels to come up, like you ask it questions. And so I haven't done this without asking questions and applying labels.
Well, labels are kind of good as a first step. They'll take you in a general area of something, but the problem with the label then is that we don't go any further than that. And what is underneath the label is a wordless sensation. And if you really get to it, you start to realize that no words can describe it accurately. You couldn't tell me, no matter what you said to me, I would not know what it is that you're feeling. The words just don't do it. It's way too complex. It's too subtle. It's too lots of things, for you to be able to be accurate. So that's underneath the label. Get down there, go with the label as far as it takes you, and then discard the label and keep looking. Get intimate with the feeling, with the sensation. Get closer and closer and closer to the sensation. As you do, you'll see stories arising and dropping off that are associated with that. Just push them aside. Don't engage with any of the stories that come up. Just keep moving closer and closer to what the sensation is that you're experiencing. And it's good to do that with your eyes closed too. Yeah. If you're up for
So
it,
no
do it now. Yeah. Yeah.
so no
If
question.
questions, yeah, well, look, what comes up is what comes up. So if questions come up, let them come up, but don't engage with them. Just flick them aside. Say, go and wait in the background while I do this. I'm busy looking at this sensation or those sensations.
I probably have not been persistent enough.
Oh, well, that's because you're inferior. Don't worry about that. Well, it's close, isn't it? Hang in there, and let it come out. It's fine. Don't engage with the stories. Just let them drop off, or be in the background. Go, go, go.
Stories. Gotta get them. I'm in my head again.
Mm.
It doesn't want me to go down there.
Mm.
I want to go down there. I can't go down there.
Mm. Well, don't turn that into a failure.
No,
What it
it'll happen
what it
again.
what it's done is it's shown you something. Yeah.
For some reason, when I've done this on my own, I haven't been able to get that, far down. Like, I kind of like went down, and then as I got more and more emotional, my ego or whatever just kept throwing stories at me and trying to put them aside, but I start losing touch with the feeling.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Well, see, the stories are incredibly seductive. They know where your buttons are, don't they? You know, because they're you. That's it. Yeah. And it is a protective thing that happens. You just want to stay away from that stuff. But you know it's there, and it's pretty close to the surface. Yeah. And keeping away from that stuff probably explains a whole lot of how you've been in your life, things that you like and don't like, and things that you do. And you know that book about Scott with all those characteristics and everything. You can see how they get shaped by things like this. Yeah. You'll go down there when you're ready. But let's not develop a story that there's something in there that we've got to get out either. You know, it can be dissolved without shining a torch in every corner of the darkness down there. It doesn't have to be brought out like that. But yeah, so getting in touch with your body. Now, this is a thing. You know, one of the things that happens as we wake up is that thoughts become less dominant, and what our body tells us becomes more prominent. I won't say dominant, but prominent. You know, we take a lot more notice of our intuition as we get more relaxed about things as well. Yeah.
I have noticed that the mind always uh, make this sensation bigger than it is, and
Mm.
it's almost like, in my experience, there's only the contraction. There's only the sensation of contraction, and that makes it more challenging to feel it. So if I find it helpful to to be aware of other sensations like sounds around me, any areas in my body that doesn't feel contracted, and that puts it in more realistic frame. It makes it easier to feel it.
Hmm. Yeah, we can talk about thoughts or mind or ego, if you like. I don't like that, but yeah, we can talk about them as if they've got independence and intelligence, and that they have intentions and so on. Because it seems like that. It seems like our thoughts want to take us in a particular direction. They don't want us to look at the shadow stuff. They want to keep us away from all of that, and so on. But that's just the way we talk about them. It's not really the way it is. But it's useful to talk about them like that, as long as we don't start believing that they have independence. You know, that they're not the real self hiding away in there. Yeah.
It does seem like it's an entity in its own.
Mm. But like Ramiz was just saying, it's like thoughts will say, without saying it, they don't say it in words. I mean, a lot of our thoughts are not verbal. You know, a lot of our thoughts are pictures or feelings or other things that are just a lot less subtle. Well, that's interesting. My my recording stuff thought we just started talking in Arabic for some reason. Must have heard your accent, Ramiz. Anyway, yeah, it's like thoughts will do their job, you know, in any way they can, kind of thing. And their job is to keep you feeling okay. You know, that's one way to look at them. And so if you start getting close to the shadow stuff, they'll make that sensation really big, like it's too scary to go there. Let's not go there, kind of thing. So then, but then from what John Lee was saying, if you get into the sensation, the pure sensation, it's another reality. Now, often what we think is sensation are actually what we've imagined. They're thoughts. They're not. They can't say they're just pure thoughts, but there's a thought feeling mixture going on. Well, here's another one. Feelings are sensations with stories attached to them. And so then if we start getting too close to the sensation, the thoughts will turn them into feelings, scary feelings. Keep away from that, kind of thing. Is that how you what you meant, Ramiz?
Yeah, it feels like the sensation, the contraction, is more prominent. It hides a lot of other sensations that are happening. Like it's in the foreground and everything in the background.
Yep.
So when bringing other sensations on the same awareness, it appears as just one other sensation.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. Now, of course, it's never just one thing, is it? It's always we simplify. We not just simplify. We make it simplistic, so, as we talk about it sometimes. You know, it's way more complex than that. Always, it's never
Yeah, it's
just.
like it's it's like ocean of sensations,
Mm.
not just this wave of sensation.
Hmm.
I think the other thing to notice, Scott, is notice the habit of the sensation's a bit too spicy to feel, and then you go straight back up into thought, and you just notice, oh, that's a habit I have, and then when you realize you're in the thought, you're like, oh wait, what am I missing? And it's always a sensation you're running away from. It's just, I think most of us do that.
Mm.
And if you just notice it, that's all you need to do. You're like, oh, okay.
It feels like when I notice like that the thoughts start to come, stories, it feels like there's a blanket that just goes and covers over that area of my body that everything is muted. I can feel it to some degree, but the intensity just dials down like 80% down or something.
Mm.
I think it's fine. It's kind of like what Vince said. It was kind of like, if you do jump into thought, it's not a failure. It's just what's happening right now. And then it's just more like, I can't feel this right now. Maybe later, you know? It's just, you just give yourself some, what do you call it? Like patience or gentleness. It's like,
Mm.
when I'm ready to feel it, I'm ready, but not right now.
Yeah.
And it's all okay.
It's really important, as I said, it's really, really, really important to kind of discover that a whole lot of things that we used to believe were real, that is, that they were actual, are in fact just concepts, right? And sometimes we can intellectually see something, but our thoughts will the opposite thoughts will get validated by a feeling, and so we get into a conflict kind of situation. So things like success or failure are pure concepts, absolutely pure concepts. We understand what it means at a social level. We understand what it means there, but the reality is that they're not real. There is no such thing as success or failure. There's no such thing as good or bad. These are just concepts we use to describe things from a particular perspective. And so what I say to you, and this is a really, really important one, whatever comes up, it's just this. It's not good, it's not bad, it's not right, it's not wrong, it's not success, it's not failure. It cannot be any of those things because they don't exist except as a concept. And to apply those concepts here misses the point altogether. Save that for when you're at the grocery shop. You know, you don't need it here, right? So if you're getting down into your sensations and all of a sudden you find yourself back in the head, fine, that's it. You're back in the head. It doesn't mean anything. What it can show you is something happened, and that is that you got close to something. It was starting to hurt, and woof. Next thing you're back in your head. You got away from it. You escaped from what was going to looking like it was going to be too painful to go to. That's all. And that's this time. It doesn't mean anything about the future. It doesn't, yeah. The past doesn't determine the present. The present doesn't determine the future. That's another concept. In fact, there is no past or future. They're just concepts too. And I don't mean at a theoretical level, I mean at an actual level, right? You know that the past can only exist for you as a memory, eh? Can be nothing but thoughts about something, just as the future can only be thoughts about something. So both of them just exist at a thought level. We react to them, and that's in the present, but the actuality is that they're just thoughts. If I tell you that 100% of your thoughts are bullshit, that's probably a good place to start.
It feels that truth strips away any ability to do anything.
Yep. Yep. You can just be present, whatever that means, whatever that is. Yeah. There's absolutely nothing to do. What a beautiful place to be. What a beautiful place to be. B-E, capital B-E, underlined, bold. A beautiful place to be. No doing involved at all. Yeah.
I have a like a I don't know if it feels like intuition maybe, but my life, the way I run my life is that when I get up in the morning, if I begin, I keep myself busy almost 100% of the time, even though a lot of that is inquiry and spiritual activities. I'm still busy almost 100% of the time.
Yeah. I get that. I can relate to that.
I feel like it's running, but I don't know how to. Not sure.
Yeah.
How to pull out of that.
Well, here's a trick. To pull out of it, you've just got to do it properly. So you don't try and stop it. You just try and do it better. Well, there's a contradiction. You can't get out of anything by resisting it. That just makes it stronger. You've got to really, really accept it. So if you find yourself running, enjoy running. It'll stop when it's ready to stop. All right. I get that there's maybe a story there that says you're keeping busy in order to avoid something. Maybe, who knows? Okay, look, I want to give you an exercise to do. I want you to do it for a few weeks at least, right? And that is every time you get lost in emotion or lost in your head, the time will arrive when you realize that that's been happening. It might be minutes, hours, days later, who knows how long, but sooner or later you'll realize that you were lost. You were lost in an emotion, or you were lost in a thinking spree, or whatever. You were lost. And when you realize that, I want you to laugh. If it's appropriate, laugh out loud. If it's not appropriate to laugh out loud, just have a good grin to yourself inside. But I want you to get that feeling of being, of laughing, of being jolly. That feeling that will drive out any stress hormones and replace them with feel-good hormones. But this is a really, really good exercise to start that neuronal pathway in the right-hand side of the brain. And it will also help you will get triggered more easily into the recognition that you were lost. That will happen quicker and quicker, and you'll get it much sooner because of this practice. And so what the other thing that it will do is it will short circuit the old mental pathways that you use. And those old all mental pathways, especially intellectual ones, they promise you satisfaction. And by the moment you recognize that you were lost, you'll short circuit that satisfaction of those ones. So what you'll do is you'll move stuff from the left brain to the right brain. That's just a concept again, but that's the kind of thing that will happen. So it gives you something to do. I guess you're a doer. And so this will give you something to do that will lead you to not doing in future. But yeah, it's a good one. Yeah.
I'll do that.
Yeah. love silence. The mind doesn't like silence. It usually gets active when there's nothing happening.
So Vince, is LU, when you guide someone through LU, is that just the first theta?
Yeah, the first two, usually the first three often go together, but yeah, there's never much emphasis put on the third theta, which is, it's a good one to come back to later, I think, because we often have little rites and rituals that we don't see as rites and rituals until we look at them. It is always a good one. So the obvious one is, when people go to church to be saved, that's a pretty gross kind of rite and ritual. But just how do you feel if somebody sits in your favourite chair? That's a good one. There's a little bit of ownership pops up. That's a rite and ritual kind of thing. Pernilla says anything you do with a purpose can fit into the rites and rituals thing, and it's yeah. But I have a favourite knife that I like. It's a sharp knife that I use, and all the other ones in the drawer are blunt. But I don't get upset if I find somebody else is using that knife. So that's the giveaway. Yeah. How do you feel about it when? Yeah.
Okay.
And that honeymoon period, often there's no doubts there when people first break Theta 1, if they have an epiphany, if it's a sudden shift, they don't usually have any doubts until the honeymoon period finishes, and it usually finishes because doubts turn up. So doubts is something that will go when somebody gets through the gate at LU, but it'll come back later. And it's one that kind of hangs around for a little bit. Yeah.
How do you work through someone with a lot of doubt?
Well, I don't know that there's any formula. It can be seen as a remnant of selfing. It can be seen as identification still happening, because when there's doubt, there's definitely somebody doubting, so it is identification. But there's Pernilla, again, I love her. She does some great stuff. She'll say, well, is a doubt intellectual doubt or is it an emotional doubt? So there's two different ways of looking at it, and we approach them in a different way as well. So in both cases, the answer to doubt is clear seeing what it is. So doubts almost always, they're going to turn up as a thought, and they're going to be validated by a feeling. So it's a case of recognizing those things for what they are when they happen. Yeah.
I have a quick question. I'm not familiar.
Jump in anytime, Scott. Don't ever wait for permission or ask permission to just jump in. Yeah, go on.
I'm not familiar with the LU. What LU is?
Oh, Liberation Unleashed. There's a
website.
Yeah, and there's a forum there, and you can register and wait for a guide to lead you through. as well.
Okay, somebody just pointed me to that this morning. I read something on the Discord app. Okay. All right.
Yeah. And it's I recommend it for a couple of reasons. And one of them is that if you go through the procedure at LU and go through the gate, then you are in a position to be able to guide other people through, and there's really good value in becoming a guide to do that. That will certainly deepen things for yourself. But once you've been through that and you're quite clear about the fact that there is no self there, then you have a perspective straight away. You have a perspective that those who are seekers don't yet have, and so you're able to help them, and that will help you as well. So I recommend it as good value in that way. Yeah. What do you reckon, Tyler? Tyler's recently through the gate and now guiding, and he was already pretty awake before he even went there. But yeah, do you find it helpful to yourself to guide, Tyler?
I find it amusing.
I found that amusing.
Yeah, it's like you can do your own little human experiments on people's minds.
Mm.
But it does help them also, so that's what they get out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it has been helpful at times.
Mm.
Scott, you're
Well,
muted.
Yeah, I did that because I just didn't want to interject or anything.
Okay.
yeah, you're allowed to interject. You jump in if you want. Yeah. It forces you to how can I put it, formalize or put your thoughts into a kind of framework when you're trying to get an idea across, which certainly clarifies things for me when I was doing that. Yeah. You have to think about how to say something in a really considered way sometimes, which is quite the opposite of here. I just open my mouth and out things come here. I don't ever think about what I'm going to say.
And sometimes the person you're guiding can be doing some investigation and says something that makes you look somewhere, and then you see something you've never seen before.
Yeah.
And that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So Scott, that's a relevant point for you. So that's what I mean about there being no particular point where you've got enough stars to get a certificate with this awakening stuff. No matter how long you've been awake. I mean, yeah, you'll get triggered. There'll be remnants of stuff that you haven't seen before until they get triggered, and up they come, and then you see that they're there. And they can lie dormant for years, never be triggered. You don't even know they're there. They're at an unconscious level. And then somebody says something or something happens, and all of a sudden, boom, up they come. And it's just something else to clean up. That's all it is. It's a remnant. Those remnants will probably continue as long as you're alive, maybe. Although if you adhere to the Feta model, they'll be pretty well gone by the time you get through Feta 10. And I don't know what's after that, but I suspect that, yeah, they'll still come up. Things will still happen. Yeah. Look at how many fully awake people there are, like Adyashanti and lots of people who are definitely really awake and they get sick. Go through a prolonged sickness, some of them. Yeah. It's definitely something to work on. Ooh. Talking about sick, how have you been, Anne? You were recently sick.
Yeah, I well, I did two kind of back-to-back retreats, didn't I, with Panilla and then Angelo, bit of a masochist,
Mm.
and practically the whole month I've been ill. I think I store a lot of it. I've bung a lot of stuff down into that. You were talking,
Yeah.
Scott, about all the solar plexus area, and yeah, it's been really, really tough ride. Really painful, really painful. So I don't really know where I am now. Kind of, I'm just like in a lot of not knowing. Feels calm, quite a bit shifted, I think. You know, all
So
the
how do you
shopping.
feel about that not knowing? That's the key to me. How do you feel about not knowing?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I don't. I couldn't say I have feelings about it, unless
Mm.
calm. Calm is a feeling, but I feel pretty calm.
Right.
But
So there's
then,
no agitation about not knowing.
no, no. There's. It's strange. It feels strange. Um, just feels kind of weird where I am. Not good, not bad, calm, not
So
knowing.
do you just mean unfamiliar by weird?
Yeah, kind of unfamiliar. Yeah, don't know, where I'm at with everything. I just don't know anything. I don't know. I don't know. Don't know what to do, what to not
Mm.
do. Just kind of,
And you don't know how you feel about not knowing.
um,
Except being calm.
I'm just checking that out.
Well, let me put it another way. What's the first thing that comes to mind if I say, does it feel okay, that not knowing?
Yeah, it does, unless, something gets chimed up with it. It feels, I'm just enjoying the calmness of it, really. And there is actually still, I mentioned about anxiety attacks, and there are still some of them, but they're more like an appearance now. So there's a bit of space from them,
Mm-hmm.
a bit of like curiosity rather than
Mm-hmm.
like a real panic. What the fuck's that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And as you were talking, Scott, actually, I mean, Angelo's retreat was just perfect, just absolutely amazing. And when you were talking to Scott, Angelo mentions quite a bit about the head being the body as well, because we're always talking about going down into our feelings, but the head space where the thoughts and this confusion is, which can come up with anxiety, and I get that confusion, anxiety quite a lot. It's not a feeling, but it is something, and it's not down here. It's more up here, and that's the appearance that comes along. There's an appearance of conscious thought, which is kind of just as relevant an interest in us going into sensations in the body. You know, he'll say, get closer to the thought, or explore that thought, explore that, rather than kind of running away from it. So I was just wondering, when you were talking about before thoughts become sensations and feelings, they can be caught in that preliminary stage of just a thought without meaning. Because it's only if it's given meaning that then it goes to a sensation and feeling, isn't it? Is it? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I'm considering it. Yeah.
So say if I have anxious thoughts and they're pointing to not being good enough or low self-worth or fear, or, you know, but you're kind of seeing them objectively.
Okay, yeah, that's your point. That's the big one. Yeah. So you're not lost in what the thought's about, right? Because you're considering the thought, you're outside of the content of the thought. You're looking at the fact that a thought exists, rather than being lost in what the thought story is about.
Yeah.
And so in that way, that is the same as a feeling. I agree. Exactly. It is. It's a feeling there. But when you're consumed by what the thought is about, then you're lost. That's something else. That's So
it feels quite different from being. I know what it's like to be lost in confusion, thoughts, anxiousness. It feels different. It feels like new, kind of like. Not, I won't go as far as that's interesting because it's not pleasant still, but it's like, there's more. There is more of a curiosity, which is talked about.
Yeah, it's unpleasant can be interesting. If you're outside of it, then the unpleasant is interesting. If you're inside of it, interesting doesn't get a mention. You're just lost in it. Yeah.
That's what's been happening to me. Just these, especially with the illness, because they kind of go together. Anxiety.
Oh yeah. If you're sick or tired, you'll get triggered a lot easier for sure. Yeah.
So you know, I wasn't quite sure which is the anxiety creating the illness, or the illness creating the anxiety.
Wrong. Yeah, good. Okay to have the question, but don't look for an answer. You're not going to find it. Doesn't matter. They're not separate. They're not different.
It was more an observation of, that's interesting, but, you know, I can't find out which one, what came first, the chicken or the egg. Just interesting, but not a big deal. But with the kind of thought attacks, this kind of fuzzy cloud here comes up of like a bubble appearance almost, and then it's kind of like examined, like, oh right, and if I believe that, it would point to me being a wretched person, or me being inadequate, or me being, but it stays as the bubble to be kind of like explored in consciousness as an appearance.
Yep. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
I don't know if that's the right words to describe it, but I'd be quite happy if it, it's nice to have that distance, because it's been pretty, very strong.
And one way to get that distance too is to consider, when a thought comes up, regardless of what the thought is about, to say, I'm curious about what triggered that thought. Why did that thought turn up? Why that one and not one about pink elephants or unicorns or something else? Why that particular thought came up? So if you and I say why, but I'm not really meaning to say why. I don't want you to get lost in speculation about it, but rather be considerate of the fact that something triggered that particular thought. You know, and it's not going to be one thought, it's going to be a thought process. But what triggered that is where the juice is for you, not the thought itself. What triggered it?
Yeah.
There you go again.
Yeah, I'm just wary of that leading me into another story. Like when I do that, whereas this kind of like yeah, I'm not sure about that. I know why it's triggered me. I know what's triggered me. That's very obvious. What's triggered me, but that I've been going in that direction quite a long time of looking, well, what's triggered me? And I know what's triggered me, but it doesn't lead me anywhere. What seems to lead me out of it or dissolve it is the actual looking at it and not running away. As like almost it doesn't matter what's triggered it, it's more the allowance of it and the accepting of it as just another appearance, just nothing personal almost. It's just looking at it without an identification, as if it's just a big smoke bubble, and I'm looking at it, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what's triggered it or where it's come from. It's here, and it wants to be here, like an entity. And I don't need to push it away, just like I don't need to push a feeling away. I don't need to push the bubble of confusion away. It just flows through, you know. It has a peak of confusion, and as long as I stay calm, it just then flows by, just like a feeling of sadness will have a peak and then flow by. But I'm finding the thought, because a lot of mine is these thought attacks, that anxiety attacks that I'm dealing with, which seem to be more in the head. Sometimes going to the body. If I went to the body, I found that quite easier to, you know, but it's when it's in the head, it's been more difficult to see. Am I making sense?
Yeah. I do have a little concern that you your focus is on waiting for it to go away or getting it to go away to finish it.
No,
No,
it
good,
isn't.
good.
No, it could sound like that the way I'm speaking of it, but it's more of a staying with it. At the time, I don't know if it'll go away. It's quite a surprise when the bubble pops.
Which it will do. It will do by itself. That's right. Yeah.
It's
but
just like
all right, great. Yeah.
You know, whereas confusion, it can seem to be with you for days or weeks. It's a type of dissociation that I've had a lot. But actually, it's just like another feeling. It can also just drift by. But there's nothing making it drift by. There's just like a looking, a seeing, being awake to it, being, you know, allowing it.
Yep. So that accepting it takes the hooks away. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, but no, I don't know how it happens. I don't feel I'm doing it or there's anyone doing it. It's just some change that's happened, and I don't even know why. It's just like, oh, that's nice and interesting that I seem to be able to be present a bit more, and then it just seems to drift on by. And maybe one day, well, this has only happened 2 or 3 times, which
Yeah. Well, practice is good. Mm.
I'd rather not have the anxiety at all, but it's just. I was just going to say it's been a hard one to swallow, which is interesting. Yeah, yeah. I was speaking to Jenny, she's brilliant, and I said, with Pernillas, I said I bit off more than I could chew, and she said, let's reframe that as you took a big bite.
Yeah.
Because there's more wiggle room in it. But I feel like these retreats, it's like there's so much to digest, Yeah.
But this is a big one too. Digestion happens by itself. You don't have to do anything to digest your food. You don't have to do anything to digest this.
Mm.
If you've bitten it off and swallowed it, it'll digest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just have to stop being greedy with retreats.
with, with your treats.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we give our dog too many treats.
Mm.
Yeah.
There's just a little bit of me, I suppose, that there's so many things out there, like I've got the whole Discord from the retreat, but I don't seem very interested in very much again. And something wants to be interested, but I'm just at that place where I'm not quite sure what. I suppose I'm not quite sure if I'm avoiding or if I'm just being.
Who knows? Yeah. So ask yourself the question, what are you going to do when you don't need to seek anymore? Will your life still have meaning?
Well, this is a good question, Vince. That kind of hits the nail on the head. I feel that's where I'm at with I think that's the question really, isn't it? That's the question. But I'm kind of, from seeing this anxiety thing, and the only way I can describe it is it's like I'm trying to just look at directly what's here now as like that's it. Do you know what I mean? I suppose that's the only thing I'm looking at the moment, but I'm not intending to look at it. It's the only thing that interests me, I suppose, is it's not so much a practice. I don't seem to be able to, I'm not very good at practices, but it's like there's just the whole of the scene, what I see with the circumference here, and there's a bit more interested in that. Like, what's this? Rather than
What are your thoughts, Tyler? What questions can we ask Anne to get more clarity about that? I'm not quite sure what she's saying there in the end.
When you talk about all that there is and the circumference of seeing, and then you're wondering, well, what's all that? Where does the question, what's all that, come from and appear? Is it from inside the thing? Or is it from, does it feel like a perspective outside it, trying to understand it?
It's not so much a question, it's more of a wanting to look and see. More of a looking like exploring, more of an exploring it.
Can you see that, well, do you see that you can see that there is a want to look and see?
I think a want comes up, and then sometimes that just, it's like, oh, that's not it, and that just relaxes back. So it's more of a relaxing back to allow it to show me. That
Show
makes
who?
sense. To reveal itself. To
Who is it being revealed to?
itself. It's revealing itself to itself. But there's no self. But I mean, it's just, it's just this without me.
Without who?
Without the idea of me. It's like, what's this without the idea of me?
What is it without the idea of you?
And that's what I'm looking at. What is this?
Don't you see it? What else could it be?
Well, it's just this. It's just that, it's just.
Where does the question, what is it, come from? Why is that a question? I don't even understand that question. What do you mean, what is it?
Because I don't really work in questions. So that question, I'm trying to put it into words, but it's not something that I can put into words because there's not a question there. It's more of a looking, but I'm trying to put it into words because you're asking me questions.
Right.
So I'm trying to describe it. So it's more like just trying to feel into the presence of it more.
Is there something separate from it that looks at it?
I know there's an idea of something separate that looks at it, but I know that's not the case. But I suppose that's just intellectual.
What are you looking for? I feel like you're looking for something, but you don't even know what.
I'm looking for this without distance.
Where's the distance?
Like sometimes when I'm looking, I feel a bit more melted into it, and then I bounce back. And sometimes it feels like a bit more melted.
So it's being melted into it and not
Sorry?
is being melted into it different from not being melted into it?
Yeah, very much. It's very, very intimate. It feels more intimate. It feels right. It feels like there isn't a right or wrong, but it feels like true.
So you're looking for being melted into it all the time. Is that right?
I'm just enjoying that exploration of relaxation into it. That there's not two, there's not here and there. I'm just enjoying that closing the gap a little bit, and it's only a tiny bit, but sometimes it just feels a bit more merged, a bit more like this. Sounds like nonsense to you, doesn't it?
No. Well, if I said yes, then I would have to say yes about everything. So what is there anything wrong with not being melted into it?
No, not really. It just at times it's quite a nice exploration. It feels new. It feels like, oh, that's nice.
Yeah, it's nice.
No, that's like I like that. I don't know. I'm just throwing at words, really. It just feels so like I can't explain. I can't explain.
So do you feel like you have to do anything about anything?
No, I wish I could do something, or part of me does, but I
Why?
can't do anything because when it's a bit more merged, it feels nice, but I can't make that happen. In fact, the thing that makes it happen is a more relaxed state than a seeking.
Yeah.
Have you, Tyler? Do you have you merged with the? Have you seen no distance?
Have I merged with it?
No, I don't mean that. I'm really clumsy with words. Forgive me.
No, it's okay.
But
No.
have you explored distance? Have you? Do you
What distance?
the illusion of distance? Do you still have the illusion of distance? You see, I know what it is because before non-duality, I didn't know it was a non-dual experience because it scared the living shit out of me. But I had an experience where everything dropped and there was no distance. And
When is there distance? You asked me if I still have the illusion of distance.
mm,
When do you have the illusion of distance?
well, that's a really good question, isn't it? When I think about it, which makes it just a thought.
Is there any distance between you and the thought?
Yeah, distance is just a concept, isn't it? It's just...
No, I think it's real.
No, it's not. No. This feels so nice, Tyler. I can't tell you. I don't know what's happening, but it feels nice. Yeah.
What do you mean? Of course there's distance.
Pardon?
Of course there's distance. Like if you put your hand out, are you touching your computer screen? No, you have to like move it towards the screen to touch it. So of course there's distance, right?
I know you're talking about Angelo. So what is he trying to say?
About what?
Unless
Distance.
I put a thought and a concept to what that arm's doing, it doesn't. You know what I mean? It has to have a thought and a concept to say that there's different, and that I'm moving it, and that anything's moving.
Yeah.
So that's moving, but I don't know what's moving it. And
So distance is not real then, it's just a concept?
I'm taking my glasses off now to look at the distance because I can't see with them on. Oh God, I don't know. You bamboozled me, Tyler, which feels quite nice. You've bamboozled me. My head's right out the way, so I know that there's no distance. I know that there's no distance. I don't know. I don't know how I know. I don't even know why I'm saying that. I just... It's like I can see that there's distance, but I know that there's not. It's like it looks like there's distance, but I know that there's not. My head thinks there's distance, but I know that there's not. Anyway, I think I've talked long enough.
But is there doubt now? It's okay.
Sorry?
Do you feel doubt now?
No, it's just like... No, I just don't feel there's anything else to say about it, really.
Because you've already solved the problem and you know that there's no distance?
I think that I feel like I just want to sit in that, whatever that is. It feels like a sort of deep being now, and resting, and the question of distance doesn't matter anymore.
Before you consider whether there is distance or not, it might be a good idea to consider what distance is. What do you think it is? And that might lead you somewhere.
Well, it's of me and other, isn't it? It's here and there, me and other. But they're all just conceptual ideas, aren't they? That I'm laying on top of what's actually here. Because sat here now in this just soup of being and visual images and emptiness, fullness, then I could lay some conceptual ideas on that and make a structure of it and a story and an idea. But
so now you're talking about your perception. You're not talking about where the wall is and where you are. You're talking about your perception of that. Yeah.
Am I? I don't know. Am I talking about my perception? I'm just saying what comes to me as.
So those people that get into the Feta 6 stuff with Angelo and so on and start seeing the world in 2 dimensions for a moment, they don't stay there.
Much in fetters.
Sorry?
He doesn't really. Angelo doesn't work in fetters much.
Oh, he does. He just doesn't talk about them like that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he'll mention Feta 6.
Yeah, yeah.
He'll blip around all over. So some of his talks are about.
What you have to be careful is not to mix up the idea of the absolute and the relative. So when you're talking about distance, is that a concept you're using to describe an absolute, or is it a concept that you're using to describe your experience, the relative? So you've got to keep those two separate.
I'm not sure what you mean, Vince. Would you say that again?
If you consider, just spend some time considering what distance is, what the concept of distance is, then you'll get to something called the absolute, and you'll get to something called the relative, and the relative is your perception. And when you're saying there's no distance, he's referring to a perceptual illusion that occurs. But he's not talking about the space between you and the wall. That's the absolute. That's something else. He's talking about your perception of space between you and the wall, but that's your perception. That's relative. Anyway, so it's best not to get lost in that at the moment. It's a bit. We'll get there later, but at the moment, it's. So we're still at the place where thoughts lead us astray. And when you start when you start looking at that kind of stuff, you're actually getting back to where thoughts are useful again, where you actually construct the world with your thoughts. But that's just best to leave that alone for a moment. We'll get there soon, but not quite yet.
I think with the thoughts, with the thoughts, it's just thoughts are just appearances, aren't they?
I don't know what thoughts are. Yeah. They're different things depending on how we see them, what our approach, what our experience of them is, yeah. So thoughts appear, but that's not what you mean, I guess. Thoughts paint pictures. That's the appearance that they are, I guess, yeah. I don't know. But then there's a responding to thoughts, and that's another thing again.
When you say thoughts are just appearances, What is that?
What is what? Sorry, Tyler.
What is
Oh, what
thoughts are
the
just appearances?
kind of dance around, come in and out, you know, seem to mean something, don't mean something, seem highly charged, don't seem highly charged, like vibrations of patterning.
And what's all that?
Hmm?
What's all that?
Or what?
Everything you just said.
Words.
Where did they come from?
Ideas, beliefs.
What is thoughts are just appearances? What is thoughts are just appearances?
Thoughts are just appearances like cars coming and going through
No,
the
not what does it
consciousness.
mean? What is it?
Do you
What is
experience that? Do you experience thoughts as just an appearance?
sometimes a lot and sometimes not. Sometimes a lot more than others, where they're just like they're not personal. They're not attached to anything. They're not any. They don't mean anything. Thoughts are just like another little thing in the soup of consciousness.
What is the soup of consciousness?
Well, what I consider the soup of consciousness is everything.
What is everything?
Everything is everything is everything everything that appears, that is seen.
What is everything is everything that appears that is seen.
I don't know.
It's called a corner. Can you see that corner that you've been pushed into?
When you say when you say everything means everything that is an appearance, everything that is seen, is that not a thought?
I think when we're speaking, everything is a thought. I think every word is a thought. Every single word is a thought. Because without that, there's nothing.
So what's not a thought?
This.
Okay.
What's not a thought, Tyler? There's no answer, is there?
What's an answer? A thought? What's a question?
Thought.
So what else is there? What is looking?
A thought.
What is the soup of consciousness?
A
What is
thought.
everything?
A thought.
What's not a thought?
But there's no words for that. There's no answer.
Right.
It's wordless. I mean, I could say things like emptiness, space,
They're just thoughts.
but they're just all thoughts.
Is there anything that's not a thought? And can you answer that without thinking about it?
You don't look
Yes.
very...
No.
What did you say, sorry?
Yes and no.
You don't look very excited about this.
It feels lovely. I might not look excited, but it feels wonderful. Feels really like I'm just plunging into not knowing even more.
What's knowing?
Thought.
When you know something, what is that?
A thought.
It's a belief you know something. Can you know something?
You can think you know something.
That's not what he asked you.
No.
No. You just fell over the edge of Feta 10. Go for it. Stay there.
Right. That was a beautiful interaction.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Thank you.
I didn't do anything.
I'm just thanking. Just thanking. I love that noise. What is it? Beautiful. Sounds like a bird.
It's gone now.
I think it was coming from Scott.
You're muted, Scott. We can't hear you.
There it is.
I don't know if there's any sound coming from here. It could be my puppy kind of snoring.
Yeah. Definitely an animal.
I just wanted to say, like, during all this, like, it gets so murky, but noticing the jumping from thought to thought to thought, and I just get confused, and I think that the only thing that I can really know for sure is that there is what's seen and what's heard and what's felt and tasted and smelled. It's the only thing that I know can't be, unless I put overlays on it, it's the only thing I know that's real. And so I kind of like sometimes when I get confused and I go back to that, it feels as if like it kind of feels like a small space to me still, but it's like the only safety that I can find is those, I guess they're not perceptions, but whatever they are. I don't know if that makes sense.
Okay, Scott, so these things you've just described, are you talking about sight, sound, sensations, smell, taste, and thought? Is that what you're talking about?
I was talking about these, but I was eliminating thought because as soon as I allow thought, then I can identify with it, and I no longer know if it's true or not, or probably isn't true.
So how do you know this is true?
Maybe only because I've been told, but
What's the difference between what's the difference between this and this? Can you find the boundary between them?
no. I still think of it as separate. I'm looking up again. Yeah.
Is the thought that they're separate from it?
I don't know.
But you know something. You don't know that, but you know something, right?
I don't know if I know something or not. If I do, I don't know what it is.
You sounded pretty sure about knowing something about a minute ago.
That was a minute ago.
Yeah.
But it just took a question to to shake that one. Yeah.
I mean, if you can be sure about something, then you can also doubt it.
Mm. There's nowhere to land. I thought there was a place to land.
Mm. That's what
Yeah,
Anne just experienced. No place to land. Mm.
where's the safety now?
There is none.
Well, where is the threat now?
Can't find one, but it feels like there's one inside.
What is safety?
I don't know. Well, there's only thoughts to answer that.
That's fine. It's
Lack
nothing
of
that's
threat.
yeah, lack of threat. And what's a threat?
Lack of safety. I don't know.
So without threat, there's no safety, and without safety, there's no threat. Maybe.
How do you get to the non-conceptual through talking?
When you recognize that you can't get to the non-conceptual through talking. Have you got an idea in you? Have you ever heard of direct experience? Is that something that you know about? Direct experience?
The conception of direct experience that I currently have is what is seen, heard, felt, tasted, or smelled. That's
They're concepts too. Yeah.
yeah.
They're all concepts as well. So if you experience something for that millisecond before thoughts turn up, that's what I would call direct experience. So it is the experience that you have when thoughts are not there, but you doesn't take much for you to experience the fact that thoughts turn up so fast that for all practical purposes, there's nothing but thoughts. That's all there are. Everything is thought. But it does exist. You do experience things for a 1/5000th of a second before thoughts turn up. They come along very fast. So take, for example, the idea that something touches you on the back of the neck. You get a sensation on the back of your neck, tiny little touch, and you immediately think, oh, it's a mosquito or a fly or something has landed there, and you respond to it. That's what's happened. So you get that touch happens, and sometimes that touch will happen and you're not aware of it. But when you are aware of it, immediately a story will come along that there's a mosquito. If it's the right time of the day in the right place or whatever, it'll be a mosquito, and then you'll respond to that story that it's a mosquito by swatting it, touching it. But this is a sequence that's pretty common. So one of the stories I like that works well for me is that you're walking down a path and you're daydreaming. You're walking down the path and you're daydreaming, and you get this image, this thing happens in front of you, and you see this green, this big swirl of green, and it sits on something brown and straight. that sits on something flat, and you go, oh, that's a tree. But your brain has put together all these images, and you didn't say green, brown, straight, or anything like that. But nevertheless, that's how you would describe. That's a concept you would use to describe what the brain has perceived, and it puts it together and says, "Oh, those things together make up a tree." Right? And at that point, you've got this idea of a tree, and that's what you relate to, the idea of the tree. And then you go, oh, I'm probably relating to an idea about a tree. So I'll go right up to this tree and I'll touch it. So you walk up to it and you touch the trunk of the tree. And you're still not relating to a tree. There is a sensation in your fingertips that you call touch. And you say, and that feels a bit rough or smooth or whatever the bark of the tree is. But you're still not seeing a tree. There is just a touch of your fingertips, and there is the colour that's coming in from, and then there is the shape and the form that's coming into your eyes. If we use concept, we can say conceptually all there is the act of seeing or the act of touching. But they're concepts as well, seeing and touching. There is the experience, but when we relate to the experience of seeing, there is just seeing. When we relate to the sense of touch, there is just touching. But the stories come along and make things out of this. They put it together and we've got a tree in front of us. But they're the stories, they're the concepts. The actual direct sensation wasn't of the colour or the touch, because they're labels that we put on things. It's beneath that. And you couldn't describe the feeling in your fingertips. You couldn't describe that to me in a way that I could feel it as you're describing it. There's no way. It's way too complex. You know, the colours you couldn't describe to me. You know, there's a 50 different greens in the green that you're seeing. No way you could actually describe it accurately. It's just too complex. You know, the smell under there, you know, you couldn't transmit the smell with words. There's just that. So there is this direct input that goes in through the senses, but it's immediately contaminated by thought. That's the natural thing that happens. So we respond to the five senses with stories. And guess what? When a thought turns up, it's a tricky thing. The content of the thought is what makes up the thought. So without the content, it doesn't exist. So the content, but there is the fact that it exists, right? And that's a bit like the wordless touch or the wordless seeing. The content, the fact of the existence of the thought. But again, we will respond to it. We'll respond to the thought turning up with thoughts, just as we respond to the sense of touch with thoughts, or the sense of seeing with thoughts. So in that way, you can say that the thoughts are like a sixth sense. We respond to them. We respond to our thoughts just as we respond to every other sense input when it gets stimulated. And that's what happens. That's what we do all day. We have stories, we respond to them, and that response is an experience. And then we have stories about that experience and we respond to that. So we go, but then it gets complicated because the thought is also an experience. But you can say experience, thought, experience, thought, experience, thought goes on all day from the moment you wake up, probably even before you wake up, right through until later on. But knowing that there is the touching happens, that seeing happens, that smelling happens, that thinking happens, gives us an opportunity to be less lost in the thought response thing that happens. You know, and that's when the magic occurs. That's when we go, wow, look at that. Wow, isn't that amazing? You know, that comes from not being lost in the thoughts that turn up immediately. That's part of the experience of that. And I've forgotten why I got into that little rave, what I was trying to tell you about that something. But anyway, yeah.
I wondered what, you know, like I kind of was lost when they said that, you know, thinking was the sixth, you know, sense, kind of what they said. And you know, I'm getting an inkling of what you're saying. Like I'm not, you know, it's not fully in there, but I do get an inkling of what you're saying. Like when I take my walks, my exercise walks, like I try to practice seeing without labeling and, you know, hearing, you know, expanding my focus to the entire soundscape and without labeling and just trying to listen to everything. And I guess I thought, even though I could see, you know, I could know that, like, well, I knew that was a tugboat, but I wasn't saying, oh, it's a tugboat. I want to go, you know, and it definitely enriched the experience immensely. But I wasn't aware that I knew that I had thoughts, but I figured, well, I'm not really identified with them because I'm just kind of, they're kind of floating by and they're kind of transparent.
Yeah, you're
And
listening up. Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
and my attention is on the actual soundscape and, you know, not trying, but just opening up to trying not to listen to anything in particular. Or sometimes I'll focus on that. Like I'll focus on something that may be more prominent for a second and then widen it again. Anyway, I thought I was doing it. I don't know. I didn't realize that it was a perception and not, I thought it was pure, but
Play with it. Just play with it. Yeah, you're doing great. I love it. Yeah, you're right on the edge of discovery there. You're getting it. You're getting it. And the mere fact that even that enriches things for you in a way is beautiful, isn't it? It's just great that you see beyond the labels with that stuff. Yeah, good, good, good. Yeah.
I was amazed. Like I get to bed really early because it's getting older I get, the earlier I wake up. But so when I get to bed, a lot of times kids are out in the yards and everything, and they're doing their screaming and all. And not even a year ago, I'd be like, "Oh my god, I can't go to sleep." Yeah, but after doing these, you know, whatever experiments, like now it's just, oh, it's just a sound. It's just, you know. At first, I had to like, before I started this, it was like I did experiment with like a sound was bothering me. I concentrate instead of trying to push it away. I would concentrate on it, and it kind of dissolved the negativeness of it. But after doing this, it's like now it seems like I can just, oh, they're just sounds, and I would just like allow them to come in, and before you know it, they were gone. I was asleep.
Yeah, interesting, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, we bought some balls from Aldi. They had a 3-pack of tennis balls with a hole and a little squeaky thing in them for our dog, and our dog just loves a squeaky ball. You know, she'll play with it for hours and hours and squeak, squeak, squeak it, pushes it and everything. And interestingly, this squeak sounds very much like a bird. And I frequently gone, where's that bird? And then when I realise it's the dog playing with a squeaky ball, it's like I've been ripped off, because when it was a bird, it was a beautiful sound. And when it was the dog with the squeaky ball, it's not so good. Yeah. Interesting. Really, really good stuff. Yeah. Yeah. How have you been, Bianca? How's Tyler treating you?
I was glad to hear that he finds it amusing to make experiments with my mind, and the feeling is shared. I find it amusing too. Mm. Mm. It was helpful to the stuck with Anne. And, you know, I was laughing so hard. It seems that somewhere in my mind I get the joke, but when I look for it, I don't get it.
Mm.
Mm. It's like with all these Zen koans, they have similar effect.
Yeah, I don't get the joke either.
But yeah, what Anne described in the beginning about this melting with the scene, this is what I don't get. It doesn't happen to me, at least to my knowledge.
That's okay.
Mm. Yeah, I don't know if it is a necessary step on the way to awakening or not, but if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen.
It will happen, or not.
Thanks, Vince.
Yeah, that was helpful.
I thought so. I wasn't just being funny. It's true. Mm.
It's all funny.
Yeah. This is the exciting thing. There is anything is possible, and there is so much potential, and none of it matters. Yeah.
Bianca, I want you to look into why is it funny?
The first thought that came up is it's free.
It's free? Well, why is it funny when you pull a prank on your friend, right? And you tell your friend there's like a spider on their shoulder, and then they panic, and then they hit their shoulder trying to get the spider off. Why is that funny?
Is it funny?
I don't know what's maybe not that specific one, but yeah, I think pranks are funny. Doesn't have to be that prank. Just why are pranks funny? There are whole TV shows about people pranking people.
Yeah, but okay, right now I have laughed, so there was something funny. So about saying, is it funny?
Yeah, yeah.
It's, yeah. There was
That's
an
the same thing.
assumption, and getting free of an assumption. Oh, I thought now that there is some release in laughter. Maybe it's similar to this TRE thing, how animals shake after a stressful event, and we laugh.
That sounds very smart.
I don't know.
I have a concept. Can I say it?
Of course.
So to me, a prank is funny because we're looking at somebody misperceiving their perception, and we kind of think that's funny. But I also feel like there's an ownership and maybe a feeling of superiority when you do it, and I feel like that somehow makes it seem funnier, maybe, or something. I don't know.
Well, have you ever been the butt of a joke? But then when you
Yeah.
get the joke, you laugh at yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
But at that point, I'm observing my own misperception of my perception.
Yeah. It was funny that you thought something was real and true and you were reacting to it. And it's funny because you realize that none of it it does none of it meant any sense. And now you're in on the joke.
It's the
It's like
shift. The shift is where the humour comes in with the shift, the sudden shift. You watch a stand-up comedian and he'll take you down a particular road, then all of a sudden he'll switch to a different direction and or change the context. It's that shift is where the humour is in that kind of thing, yeah. So it's like the realization that it wasn't real. That shift is where the humour is in that. Whether it's observed or experienced, it would be the same thing. I imagine that's just what occurs here. Yeah.
my brain does that to me all the time. Not all the time, but I'll be walking around in this long, convoluted, absurd thought train, and all of a sudden I just wake up and just laugh my ass off.
Mm.
Like,
Yeah. It's that shift again. That's funny. Yeah. But the one that Bianca was talking about, that's like somebody laughs when they're embarrassed. That's like a de-stressing kind of thing. That's equal. So that's not the same kind of humour, though, is it? That we're laughing, but it's not really humorous laughing. But it is a de-stressing behaviour. Yeah.
Not like embarrassed. I don't. I have to think about an example.
Mm. Yeah. There's probably a lot of other variations as well. Yeah.
Are you thinking, are you trying to say, Bianca, that it's laughing at the relief of seeing that something wasn't real?
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
Or like with a stress that it's in the past.
Mm. Yeah. Okay.
So why was it funny? And it was really funny. I looked at your camera and you were a few meters back from your computer just losing it. Why was it so funny when I was talking to N? Is that the most you've laughed in a long time?
Well, it was like, I've said that because we talk so much about beliefs, I see beliefs popping up everywhere. And it was like that. There is belief in there is a distance, and I believe there is no distance.
Yeah.
And I think it was it is like a relief for me. Yeah, that we come here and we listen to guides, and I listen to you, yeah, and I take everything you say so seriously. Yeah. And what's the joke? And we say, and Angelo said, Eckhart Tolle said. Oh my. I don't know what I stand for.
Yeah, there should be like a stand-up comedian who only says Zen koans. And you know, in a way, it's like Angelo's whole channel is a comedy channel. That's his niche.
Hmm. Well, I'm going to pull the plug in a few minutes, so if there's anything else that needs to happen tonight, let's do it now.
I just want to say that I'm amazed at this community, and I'm ecstatic that I've been pointed your way. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Oh, great. Man, I just love that you're here and you just fit in so beautifully. I love it. Thank you. Mm. Yeah. All right. It's hard to say goodbye, isn't it? Okay, but I'm going to, by the time I have a shower, I'll get 4 hours sleep tonight. So I'll
Okay.
see you all next time.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody.
Yep. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Wonderful meeting. Thank you.